Hi,
Hi,
thank you for meeting with me today.
you're welcome.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Good. You had a busy day yet, or
Yes, I had an IEP meeting.
okay? We'll talk a little bit more about that later.
Okay.
Do you have a busy whole day today?
I do. I have another meeting after you and then a session
Okay.
with a client.
The client. And what exactly do you do?
I'm a behavior analyst, so I work with kids with autism,
Okay.
and we create a plan for the kids and then work on skills that they might need to work on, whether social skills, grooming skills, self-care, independence, everything.
Okay. Awesome. And how many clients do you have? About
Five.
5 clients.
Mhm.
Are they primarily in this area or
They're in different areas of Chicago.
different areas?
Mhm.
Okay. Okay. So you travel a lot?
I do. I drive about, I would say, from 2 to 4 hours a day,
Really?
usually.
That's a lot. Do you mind that at all or no?
It comes with the territory. So if I could work at a clinic that would require only me to get there and back.
Right.
But since I have my daughter Mia, I drive to my clients and sometimes I come pick her up and then I take her to wherever she needs to go. Then sometimes I go back home and then go pick her back up and then everything, the endless cycle.
Okay. Okay. Um, so before we get started, just wanted to inform you, you did sign a confidentiality notice, and I am a mandated reporter. So if you say anything regarding harming you or harming others, I do have to report that. Just let you know before we start. So let's start with a little bit of background about you, and we already know that you're a behavior analyst, but where did you grow up?
I grew up 10 years in Mexico,
Okay.
and then we moved to Texas, and I lived there till 3 years ago
Okay.
in South Texas. And then from there, I moved to Chicago here, and I've
Okay.
been here for the last 3 years.
Liking it so far?
Uh, it's okay.
It's okay. You mind the cold yet?
I've gotten used to it a
Gotten used
little
to
bit
it?
more than before, yes.
Okay. We have a girl in our class that's from Texas, and she's scared
Oh, what
for the
part of
first time.
Texas?
From South Texas, I think. Not too sure, but anyways, so grew up in Mexico, then moved to Texas, and then moved to Chicago. Um, talk about where was Mia in all of that?
Okay, so I moved. Not after graduating high school, I started college. I met her dad. We got together. Then we had Mia. We got married. And that was when I was 20 years old. I stopped going to school for a couple years. Then I got divorced. Then I continued going to school, got my bachelor's in psychology. And then I was into teaching. I was teaching for 3 years and went back and got my master's in experimental psychology with a behavior analyst concentration. And then I graduated in 2016. And Mia was there through the whole thing when she was, I guess, when I started my master's program, that's when she was going in first grade, second grade. Before that, I was having a little bit of issues with her reading and stuff like that. So I noticed something was going on with her on that. And I mean, she's moved with me wherever I've gone, so she's been doing fine. Uh, and then she's been here in the Skokie district since we moved to Chicago
Okay,
3 years ago.
And just some background information about Mia. How old is she?
She's 12.
12, and that would be grade 7. Okay, 7th grade. And she's been in the same school for how many years now?
Well, she was in elementary for 2 years,
Okay.
fourth and fifth, and then now she's in middle school for second year.
Okay, so 2 years at the same school. Elementary was a different school.
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess we can just go right into, do you have any concerns about schooling here in particular as it relates to Mia?
The only concerns that I have is just she does have dyslexia, so she has an IEP for that, and just that she's receiving the proper support for her being able to cope with it and have the tools that she needs to succeed.
Right. So you said you had an IEP meeting today, right?
Mhm.
Um, Can we talk a little bit about that?
Yeah.
Okay. So how did that meeting go?
Oh, it went really well. This was the first time that I actually got a draft of the IEP before the meeting.
Oh,
I've
nice.
never done that. They've never done that before. They went through all her accommodations of what she needs, what she doesn't need. They did remove her. Well, one of the accommodations was that she would test in a different site
Mhm.
all the time, even for classroom assessments,
Okay.
not only major assessments like state testing, but we decided that it was best for her to test in the classroom, and if she needed, she could ask to be in a separate setting if she needed to,
Okay.
which I think is the best for her.
Okay.
They also added, before she was receiving everything read aloud to her in all the subjects except reading, which was weird. So they added that on there too. So now
Okay.
she receives text to speech on all the subjects. And if text to speech is not available, she can ask the teacher or an aide to read to her.
Okay. Cool. So you say you're pretty happy with it overall?
I am. She's getting and learning to get the right tools to be able to succeed on her own, which is my goal for her to be able to do it without any extra assistance from others, that she'll be able to cope and find her own tools to figure out what to do.
Okay. So let's talk about a little bit before this current IEP. What was her main struggles?
When she was in first grade, I don't know if you've ever seen the tiny reading passages they get for fluency.
I don't think so.
It's like a mini story. It's got maybe 20 to 30 words, sometimes up to 100. And they have 3 minutes to read the section. And they have to practice at home because then they're going to get tested on the fluency at school. Well, she could sound out the words very well, but when it came to putting the word together, like apple, right? You sound it out.
Mhm.
Her brain could sound them out, but her brain couldn't put them together.
Right.
So sometimes you would say apple, and then when it was time to put it together, she would say potty, like something completely different and
Right.
completely off. And it wasn't that she didn't know what was on the paper; it's just she couldn't decode the word properly in order for her to be able to read it
Okay.
and understand what it was saying. So through first grade, that happened, and the teacher just, I mean, they monitored it, and she had okay grades. I mean, she still managed to do it because we would practice at home a million times. It would take us an hour to do a 3 minute passage, and then she had to read it 3 times.
Yeah.
So at some point, we just like had to improvise. But then in second grade, she was doing okay, and she was okay. There's not a lot of reading, but then when third grade came, that's when she really struggled because that's third grade. It's also in Texas when they take the state testing.
Okay.
So it was when they were focusing more on reading, more on comprehension, and she was just doing miserably on all her tests. She was getting zeros, 20s, 30s, 40s, 60s. Like you range between 0 and 60, but her average was like 40s and 50s, especially in reading. Her math was off the charts, but that's not any reading.
Yeah.
So anything that required reading, she was doing really, really poorly. And her English teacher tried to tell me, her reading teacher tried to tell me that she just didn't have reading comprehension, that she just didn't have any comprehension of the material or anything. I'm like, that is not possible.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you why, because when my sister and I are having a conversation with another adult, Mia will pop in and say, well, you can do this. Like find solutions for things that we're talking about. So that means that she's comprehending the material. She's just not comprehending what she's reading, which is a little bit different than not understanding what words are being said.
Right.
So there was some point that also in third grade, you start getting word problems for math. So I noticed that when I would read the question to her and then the answers without any intonation, making sure that I did not give away the answer or anything like that, she would get all of them correct. Right. Like I would make her do it on her own and she had wrong answers. And so I would read the question and then the answers and then just give her back the paper. And then she's like, oh, I made a mistake. And she would circle the proper one.
Okay.
And she did that for, like, I did that a little bit. And then, like, I started reading more on what it could be. And it ended up that there's different types of dyslexia, not only flipping letters or numbers.
Right.
So I requested her to be tested at school.
Okay. She was tested.
It took a little while for them to test. They did not want to test her.
Really?
So I asked for her to be tested, and they said no. They said, well, she just needs more help with decoding and this and that. I was like, but I think it's something more. I think she has a learning disability, and I want to figure out what it is. I think it's dyslexia, but I'm not sure. Like, I need you to test her.
Mhm.
So I had friends that were teachers, and one of them told me, well, as per the state, if you request to be tested by writing, they have 90 days to test her. They have to test her because you requested it by writing.
Mhm.
So I drafted a letter requesting Mia to be tested. I took it to the principal's office or to the secretary, and I said, I need to turn this in. I need a signature that you received it and a copy
Yeah.
of that. And no one wanted to do it. Finally, the school psychologist came over and
Right.
did that. Fine. They're like, okay, we're gonna test her, but before we test her, we need to do some interventions and blah blah blah. So I told them my theory, and they tried it. Total game changer.
Yeah.
Like, her grades went from 20s, 30s, 40s, 60s to 80s, 90s, 70s, like passing. Everything was passing. And they were so impressed with the fact that just reading out loud to her
Mhm.
solved the whole issue. So they figured out that it was her reading and being able to decode the words, because it's called decoding when you're reading and then you understand what you're reading.
Right.
It's not really that you can understand what the content is.
Mhm.
It's just that when you're reading, your brain doesn't decode the words to tell your brain what it really means.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so they did that. And then finally they tested her, which when they do any type of testing, they do an IQ test.
Mhm.
They do several other tests, including the one for dyslexia or learning disabilities. And then they came up with the fact that she did have dyslexia.
Awesome. You're probably like a school psychologist dream parent.
No, I was pretty, I was pretty pushy.
Sometimes schools need that, especially at the beginning.
And my biggest concern is that a lot of the schools, they don't listen to the parents. And I kind of know with my clients as well. The clients come up and ask, or the clients' parents come up to school and ask for certain things. And the schools are, a lot of the times, are very hesitant to help.
Yeah, we're slowly learning that as well. All right. So that was a lot of good things for Mia. Regarding schooling, are there any other concerns you want to talk about?
Well, she was just having a little bit of trouble making friends at school, but now in her actual IEP this time, since she's been going to the social worker, now they've included social work into her IEP,
Awesome.
which is really great because that means that now she's got extra support to help her with any type of anxiety or social anxiety that she might have in the classroom and in the schools.
So how exactly does that play out?
So pretty much, they over the past couple of years, they've put a lot of emphasis in depression, anxiety, and how the schools can help with that. So they actually this year at her school they screened everybody for depression.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
You had to actually opt out if you did not want your kid tested.
Okay.
So they didn't really ask you if you wanted your kid tested. They say everybody's going to be tested. If you don't want your kid tested, opt out. Which was, I thought it was genius because then everybody gets tested. Since she was having trouble making friends and keeping a good group of friends, so she started seeing the just general education social worker at school.
Okay.
At the end of last year, and then at the beginning of this year, the school social worker actually reached out to me and said, I think Mia would benefit from having a social work every week as part of her IEP, so it can help her with whatever anxiety she might be feeling within the school and her classes.
How do you think Mia's relationship with that social worker
Oh,
is?
I asked her first. So, like,
Okay,
the
cool.
social worker asked me, and then I asked Mia. He had already asked her, and then
Hmm.
I asked her, and she's like, "Oh yeah, I would love to. I mean, I see my cool social worker every week or
Oh,
something, so
awesome. That's good.
I like
Hmm.
it." So
It's
she
cool
was
that they
good
have
with
a
that.
it's cool that they have a good relationship.
It is. It's when I was in high school, some of my friends had good relationships with the social workers, but
Okay.
I never really saw a social worker in high
Yeah,
school.
same with me. I feel like I haven't seen when I was growing up. At least I never saw a school psych or a social worker, but I'm sure that
And
they were there. But
some of my friends had social workers, and
hmm,
they would see the social worker at school all the time, or they would call them counselors, right?
right,
And I never developed that, but now seeing that how it actually works with Mia, it's actually really cool. I really like it.
right. Has she ever talked about the stuff she talks about with them or no?
Yeah, I mean, she talks about, school and home are two different environments. Like at home, it's like we do crafts and we
Right.
do things together. We watch TV. We like watching shows together.
Hmm.
So she doesn't really get the same experience as she does at school. So at school, that's where she's experiencing most of her anxiety and things like that.
Right.
So she tells me, oh, we talked about the problem that we had with this other kid at school and
Hmm.
how to work my problems out and things like that, and how big or
That's
small
good.
my problems are.
Hmm. That's interesting. That's good.
I think they're using CBT,
Oh, okay.
cognitive behavioral therapy.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. So she doesn't have, what was her main anxiety? Has she ever expressed that?
She didn't really have a good group of friends. Like
Okay.
she was a little
So
lost with
socially,
social stuff,
okay.
and um, I think this year we found the right way to tack tackle her dyslexia.
Hmm.
So now we're using text to speech a lot, and all kids in her middle school have iPads.
Right.
So it's really easy, and the teachers do the worksheets online, so you can always save it as a PDF. So now she gets it, and he can read it to her out loud.
That's awesome.
So now she's got an immediate, thing to read to her
Hmm.
all the time, which is great. I think before it always had to be a person that had to read out loud
Right,
to
right,
her.
yeah.
So that adds extra time, extra steps. So now she doesn't need any of that. I think those are the right tools for her right now, and she's finding it to be better. Like
Okay.
now she can do it silently and on her own
Hmm.
rather than always have to ask for help. Not that she has trouble asking for help, but I think that her testing anxiety has gone down because of that. And then the social work in school and then outside of school have
Hmm.
helped with her social anxiety.
Okay, cool. So talked a little bit about her IEP, the things you're liking that they're doing, um, and some of the anxiety-driven things that she has stated out loud to you. What would be some goals for the future of Mia's schooling that you would want to see, or some goals even socially that you would want to see?
For her academic goals in regards of the dyslexia, I would like to see her be able to decode words better with an extra assistance that she's able to read. Because
Okay.
you're not always gonna get a digital file for
Right.
everything. So her reading enough so that she has the right repertoire for
Okay.
later.
Hmm.
And then socially, I mean, I would like her to be able to deal with her issues without having to go to the extreme, which
Right.
she was going for a little
Okay.
bit.
Okay.
It's like she was either black or white, so I want her in that gray area.
Hmm. Okay. So, how are some ways you think that you could try to plan for those goals or somehow
Well,
um,
school, they're already working on the fluency.
school or working on that?
Yeah, they're working on the fluency and the decoding. They're working on her staying on task and all that stuff.
Hmm.
And then with the social work at school, they're working with identifying thoughts, behaviors, and emotions,
Hmm.
and then how she can manage them and categorize them, whether they're a big issue or small issue, and then kind of just move forward from there. So one of the goals that I would like to see her being able to express what she's feeling and being able to identify when or if she needs to act. It's not all the time you need to
Right,
act.
of course. Um, let's see. Are there any things that you could do at home that you think would be helpful for her, either socially or academically?
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm already doing this, but then I realized that there was a little loophole. So
Okay.
I monitor her online.
Usage.
Yeah, like she has a phone,
Hmm.
and since we moved here, she's had a phone because I need to know where she's at. I
Right.
do monitor her location. Like we all share locations, my
Hmm.
sister, her, and I. So we're good with that. But I also have an app on her phone that tells me which apps she's using. I don't see the content of the apps, but I
Okay.
do know what apps they are.
Right.
So I monitor how long she uses certain apps, and she gets an hour and a half a day of any app, and then unlimited access to reading apps like comics and things like that.
Right.
So I'm letting her have unlimited access to any type of comic books or whatever, so her reading gets better, and it has gotten better over the
Okay.
years because she's liking to read graphic novels like comics and stuff
Right.
like that.
Okay.
Um, and then YouTube is monitor. It's only that 1.5, but she also has a computer, so sometimes she'll play on
Okay.
it. So, and then she also has the iPad from school.
Oh yeah.
So, so yesterday she was on her iPad doing some origami, and she was watching a video while she was doing the work.
Oh,
Excuse me. So I'm kind of like, I'm like, okay, I need to think this better. So I need to now set more downtime
okay. You're
then.
right.
So I'm starting to, making sure that she has some quiet time so her brain can kind of decompress
Hmm.
and not have to be thinking, have so many things going on at the same time.
Right.
She can listen to music, but that's completely different than visual.
Yes. All right. Awesome.
And I'm doing it as well. So like when she's doing it, I try to just play music with her
Cool.
or something like that.
Lead by example.
Try to. It's not always easy.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. Well, I think that'll wrap it up.
Okay,
We
awesome.
talked about some goals that you could do, that you already seem to have a good grip on what you want to try to do to help her.
Thank you.
I think that's awesome. So yeah, thank you for being with me, and
You're
have a
welcome.
nice day.
Thank you.